Okay, well, first of all, thank you for taking the time out of your day to sit here for this interview. So the first question I have is, what's your name and your date of birth?
My name is Roni Purewal, and my date of birth is September 15th of 1965. We immigrated to Canada on February the 10th of 1970. I was born in a small village in India, which was called Sri Shankar. I came here with my mom and dad, and we first landed in Vancouver and got a connecting flight to Victoria, where we lived there for 3 months with my mom's brother's family, so my uncle and aunt and their children. And then because my father couldn't get a job there, although he did work for a little while at one of the nurseries there picking daffodils, which from what I can remember, my father felt a little insulted. He had come to Canada to pick flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, we were there for about 3 months, and then one of my other uncles, my other mom's brother, used to work in the Donald sawmill. So he got my dad a job there, and we came to Donald. And I remember the shack that we used to live in. It was a 2-room shack, one where you just had the beds and the sitting area, the other, the kitchen and the table there. It had a small washroom, but no shower or bathtub. Didn't have any hot water either. So I remember my mother bathing me in the kitchen sink. My father would take a shower at the end of his shift at one of the bunkhouses at the sawmill.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom got to know one of the neighbors who was another Indian family really well, so she would go there to take a bath every day. And we lived there for about a year. And then when my brother came along and my brother was born, my mom asked my dad that we had to kind of get a better place to stay where there would be hot water. So my dad bought a trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a small trailer, 8x24. And then we moved into that trailer, into the local trailer court.
Okay. So how old were you, did you say, when you first arrived in Canada?
I was 4 years old.
Okay. What's your earliest memory of Canada?
My earliest memory was when the plane was going to land in Victoria, and it was circling the airport. I noticed that the cars down below looked like toys, so I remember telling my mom that as soon as I got down there, I wanted a red car to
Mm-hmm.
play with. And she tried to explain to me once the plane landed that the cars were much bigger than what they looked like from above.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I remember thinking, I wasn't quite convinced, so I was adamant as soon as we landed. And of course, my uncle's family came to get us, and we were being led to the parking lot. I remember asking her again, so what happened to those cars? I want my red car. So that was my earliest memory.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember like your childhood in Donald? So like the first few years that you were in Canada, was it easy to adapt? Did you have friends or family or anybody else that you missed back home? Were there things that you were missing from home that didn't exist here in Canada?
Well, I came from an extended family like most people do from India, and I missed my grandmother because my grandmother was one of my major caretakers there.
Mm-hmm.
I carried around a picture of her for almost a whole year.
Yeah. Is this your dad's mom or your mom's mom?
Yeah, this would be my paternal grandmother, my
Okay.
father's mother.
Okay.
And I missed them a lot, and it took me a little while, at least about a year, to kind of forget. Not forget, but at least kind of move on from there and get to know some of the other kids that were around the trailer court to play with.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you said your family had arrived in in Vancouver. Then you went to Victoria, then Golden. Have you lived anywhere else in British Columbia or the country?
Well, now I live in Surrey.
Okay.
So after I graduated high school here in Golden, I wanted to take some post-secondary education, so I moved down to Victoria.
Mhm.
I did my 2 years of post-secondary there, and then I moved to Vancouver on campus at UBC. I spent a couple of years there,
Mhm.
got my bachelor's in education, and then I've been teaching in Surrey ever since, and that's where I'm currently living.
Okay. Were there any other stories that you remember that would be significant to the immigration experience of Punjabi Canadians who have settled here? Were there any like difficulties, any other difficulties that you had, challenges
There was.
about
and
growing up in Golden?
There's a
And
short
Donald?
story I've written of my grade 1 experience. If that's okay with you, can I just share that?
Yeah.
Okay. I called it my grade 1 experience. One lazy Sunday afternoon in September, as I sat on my back porch in my favorite recliner, I noticed some bumblebees. Yes, bumblebees. I watched the bees for quite some time. They continued to disappear underneath the overhang of the house. For the first time in my life, I realized that bees are very resilient. They are also extremely loyal and very hardworking. I remember a time when I was like one of those loyal and hardworking bees. It was the time when my grade 1 teacher wore a nest on the top of her head. My teacher's name was Mrs. Prophet, and she always had her hair swept up into what I now know is called a beehive. At the time, I wondered just how long it took her to do her hair every morning. September has always been a special month for me, not only because it brings yet another birthday, but also because it's the beginning of another new school year. My grade 1 school year is one that has stuck with me. I remember how careful I was with my new crayons so as not to break any of them. I found the colors ever so fascinating, and they even had that ever so special smell of new. The new opened workbooks also warranted much neatness and care. Every morning I would run all the way to school with my friends, racing each other as we went. At the sound of the bell, we would all shuffle into the school, barely able to wait for the day to unfold. Then I would hear that fluid English accent, ever so sweet, calling the class to attention. Mrs. Prophet was beautiful. She even smelled beautiful. When I grew up, I was going to be just like her. After school, I would see her brown station wagon parked outside the school. That was the kind of car I was going to have when I grew up. Then there was Mr. Prophet. He had a big bushy red beard, and he spoke in a deep, booming voice that I didn't care much for. He had that walk that said, "I think I'm something special." That was me. Or rather, that was one thing I didn't understand about Mrs. Prophet. How could she be with this stuffy, boring, red-bearded man? What did she see in him anyway? As the school year passed, we worked feverishly to finish our workbooks. That would indeed please Mrs. Prophet. I'm sure she would notice how hard we all worked for her. Valentine's Day arrived, and we all helped fill her envelope. We stuffed the envelope until it could hold no more. Many of us, I think, must have given her more than one special Valentine. I'm sure this pleased her very much. The rest of the school year proceeded much in the same manner. The problem arose when at the end of the year, when my mother was called in for a parent-teacher interview. Little did I know it was to deliver news that would shape many aspects of my life from that moment forward. My revered teacher had decided to retain me in grade 1 for another year. The first emotion I remember feeling was anger. How could someone I had worked so hard for think I was dumb? Is that what she had been secretly thinking all year? Did all those red check marks not prove I was just as capable as any other student? According to my mother, who did not speak any English and had to rely on an interpreter, said Mrs. Prophet felt another year in grade 1 would help strengthen my verbal English language skills. I immediately felt I had been misled and cheated. The shock and disappointment was lessened when I found out all my friends were also kept back for the very same reason. 8 out of a total of 19 students were retained that year. All of them were English as a second language students. And all this time, we all thought we were quiet in class because we were supposed to be. We thought we were being well behaved and would be punished if we spoke out of turn. However, our beloved Mrs. Prophet thought we needed a whole year more to practice speaking. I have carried that sense of disappointment and failure into my adult years. However, I was able to gain something positive when, in my last year at the University of British Columbia, I was given the opportunity to major in teaching English as a second language. I accepted the challenge without any hesitation. Many, many years later, I now realize why I repeated grade 1. It was so I could help others who were met with the same challenges as I was. When I first arrived in this great country called Canada, I wonder if I will play a significant role in the lives of my students. Will they remember me? Will a lazy Sunday afternoon daydream lead them on a journey down memory lane? Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. So in your story, you talked about some of your friends.
Yes.
So who were your friends? Were they Punjabi children who lived there in Golden, or?
Most of them, yeah, my friends were Punjabi children
Okay.
that I have actually kept in contact with. A lot of them still continue to be my friends because we graduated together.
Mm-hmm.
And a number of them have moved down to the Surrey, Vancouver area.
Mm-hmm.
So we have kept in contact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this school was located
It was
in Donald.
Yes. Donald.
Okay. So most of the teachers there, they were of like European descent. Most of the teachers there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But most of the children there, they were Punjabi, or were they?
About half and half, I would say.
Okay.
Half of them were Punjabi speaking, half of them were English speaking. And in my grade 1 year, like I said, it was a husband and wife team. And then my grade 2 year, it was a lady by the name of Mrs. Dahl. And grade 3, 4, and 5, again, there was a husband and wife team. Their name was Marianne Emery and Lee Emery.
Okay. Okay. Did you meet, was it a very diverse classroom? Was there individuals from other backgrounds in your classroom? For example, was there anybody who was Aboriginal? Or did you encounter anybody from the Aboriginal background?
Mostly, I think they were of European descent and Indian descent. I think there was one family where the father was French because the last name was Peltier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the mother was half of European descent and half of First Nations
Okay. Okay.
descent, yeah.
Did you meet anybody else who was of Aboriginal background? No? Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share about your experience of immigrating and settling in Canada? Any other significant
other
stories?
In those years, there was no temple or gurdwara, so every Sunday, our parents had us attend Sunday school, and we enjoyed that. And Sikhs believe in one God and that there is many ways of worshiping that God, so our parents didn't mind that we were learning about Lord Jesus and some of the verses, but it was fun because we did lots of arts and crafts and got to know some of the other community members or children of our age that were of not Indian descent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we knew it at the time, but looking back, I think we were very blessed because we had a very rich childhood. We didn't have a lot of toys or materialistic things, but there was a trailer park full of children. So I remember in the mornings I would quickly brush my teeth, have a little bit of breakfast, have my mom comb my long hair and do them into braids, and I would be outside, and as soon as I'd be outside there'd be lots of children to play with. I remember playing games like hopscotch and 7-Up and bike riding for miles around. And in the summertime, we would be out in the bush picking wild strawberries, and then blueberries would come thereafter, and then raspberries, and lots of flowers grew wild as well, like the wild rose. And I think our favorite flowers as kids was the lady slippers. We had never seen a lady slipper before. And it was safe, like nobody ever locked their doors, and everybody trusted one another. So I remember our parents would socialize with each other, and they were all friends as well, so we were quite close, and everybody was very supportive of one another.
Okay. Do you remember roughly like what the population was around at that time in Donald? Was it like 100 families or?
Maybe not as many as 100, but I would, again, I was young, so don't quote me on this, but I would say at least 70 families, because some people, like I said, lived in the bunkhouses in and around the mill. And then there was 2 trailer courts that were all full. There was no vacancy there either. And also many kind of log homes where people lived as well. So it was a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did most of the Punjabi families that lived there, did they live in the bunkhouses because their fathers worked in the sawmill?
I think most of the men that lived in the bunkhouses were those where they were either single or they had not, their families were still back home in India. Most of the family people that had the wives and children, they all lived in trailers and, like I said, log homes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the next set of questions. So today, how do you primarily identify yourself? What would you say your identity is? Do you consider yourself Canadian or a Sikh Canadian? Or if somebody asked you what's your identity, what would you say?
Well, I consider myself Canadian. I would say a lot of my values remain the same because I was raised by parents that came over here when they were about 30 years old, so I still have some of those same values. However, being raised here and educated here, I've also assimilated, I think, into the general stream of things, so maybe 20% of my thinking and the way I live is probably Indian, and 80% is probably Canadian.
Okay. But if you had to identify yourself, if somebody just asked you off the bat, who are you?
I would say I'm Indo-Canadian, I think, if somebody asked me that.
Okay. And how do you see your parents? Do you see them as being Indo-Canadian as well?
Yeah, they're Indo-Canadian, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember even now, like my mom's been here almost 47 years, and if we ask her if she wants to visit India, she connects more with Canada than with India, and she doesn't want to visit India. So I think over the years, because even most of their lives now they've spent here rather than India, so they actually feel more comfortable, and I think a stronger connection to Canada rather than India.
Okay, so you already addressed my next question, which is what was it like growing up as a person of Punjabi descent in Donald? But are there any other stories that you want to add to that? Any challenges or successes that you had?
No, not really.
Okay, you
Not really. I
pretty
think
much covered it.
those were probably a couple of the main examples that I've got. And because that school, though, was only to grade 5, I remember in grade 5 there was only myself and this Caucasian boy by the name of Tim Dobbs. And so we were kind of the leaders, I guess, of the other children. But in grade 6, I had to take the bus into town. and I went to Alexander Park Elementary, and it took me 45 minutes each way every single day to come to Golden to go to school. And then towards sometime in grade 7, we ended up moving to Golden, and so I was already here by the time I entered high school to go to Golden Secondary.
Okay.
And then I guess going on to the high school years, when I graduated, I remember because we were of Indo-Canadian descent, and back in those days, our parents didn't want us to go to parties, and we were raised very traditionally, and we had long hair. We weren't allowed to cut our hair, wear makeup, wear shorts. That when I graduated, all of us did go to the Grand March, and we, got our diplomas when we graduated, but we weren't allowed to go to the after grad party and participate in those sorts of activities.
Okay. Are there any traditions or practices or holidays that your family has kept from India?
I found not so much in Golden, but now that we've moved to Vancouver area, there's a large Indo-Canadian population there, and I know there's Diwali and Baisakhi and stuff, but still I think our family kind of participates in that, but not really.
So why was it different when you were here in Golden? Was it because there wasn't like that big of a
I don't think we
population?
just didn't have the venues. Like, I mean, if you wanted to buy some of the Indian sweets, we didn't have the shops here, whatever,
okay.
whereas Vancouver does. And there was no temple until 1980, so there was no place to really congregate and get together. So I think a lot of the people that immigrated in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they actually probably tried to assimilate more into Canadian culture, whereas now the people that are immigrating from India into places like Vancouver, because there is such a big population, and a lot of whether it's the banks or other places, they usually will provide interpreters for those people. So I don't see them assimilating into Canadian culture as quickly, because there's not as much of a need to do that.
Okay. So going back to Golden, so during that time period, you said there weren't any Punjabi sweet shops here during that time?
No Punjabi sweet shops, and no fabric shops to get the Indian garments.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you wanted that, did you have to, if you wanted anything like new, for like, for example, like a new suit, then would you have to leave Golden to get that?
Yeah,
or?
usually people went into Calgary, or if they were visiting family in Vancouver, they would get it there. And a lot of the time a lot of those vendors discovered that they could come here, so they would come from Vancouver and rent a couple of motel rooms where they would set up all the fabric, and then the town's women would go there and choose some outfits.
Okay, that's an interesting story. Are there any traditions and customs from your culture that you want to pass down to your children your children were born and raised here, right?
Yes, my children were born in Vancouver, and they are 11 years old now.
Okay. What would you pass down to them about being Punjabi Canadian? Are there any customs or traditions or beliefs that you would pass down to the next generation of Canadians?
Well, I like to teach them some of those old, I don't even think that they're old Indian values. They're just values from a different time, which are things like loyalty, honesty, to work hard, to realize your dreams if you have goals, to achieve them. And I try to tell them of a time when I went to school, or the types of things that I did, so they can kind of connect with that. And my daughter actually, just this past year, wrote a speech about me and some of the things that I've told her. So if that's okay with you, can I share that with
Yeah.
you? She called it My Mom the Immigrant. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to leave your country of birth and immigrate to a foreign country to build a new life for yourself? Then she says to her teacher, "Good afternoon, Mrs. Gill and fellow students. Leaving your loved ones behind, leaving your home, and leaving all you know to embrace the unknown and new is extremely difficult, daunting, and exciting." She says, "Hello, my name is Priya, and today I'll be sharing my mom's experience of immigrating from India to Canada. My mom came to Canada on February the 10th of 1970 at age 4. She and her family lived with an uncle in Victoria for many months. Later that year, her father got a job working in a mill in a place called Donald Station. My mother lived there for a full year in a one-room shack with no bathtub, hot water, or radiant heat. During this time, she missed everyone back home in India, especially her grandmother. Mom carried her grandmother's photograph everywhere she went. My mother started kindergarten only to discover she could not communicate with the teacher and the other children in class because she could not speak English. In addition, she hated the cold, grainy chocolate milk the teacher served at snack time. In grade 1, Mom continued her struggle to learn how to read and write English. She was made to repeat grade 1 because the teacher felt repeating the grade would help improve her English language skills. Today, my mother teaches students who are learning English for the very first time. She understands their struggles and empathizes with them because her journey was similar. According to my mother, Canada is a wonderful country where we respect our laws, respect human rights, and live in safety and freedom. Now tell me, how would you feel if you had to immigrate to a new country and learn to speak a new language, learn new cultural customs, and leave your home and family members behind?"
Oh, that's really nice. What are so how old are your children?
My children are 11 years old. They're twins.
Okay.
My daughter's name is Priya and my son's name is Arjun.
Okay. And what are some dreams and visions that you have for your future and the future of your children here in Canada?
I would like my children, I think, to build upon what I've kind of set for them. My parents obviously couldn't give me all the things that I can give them, and they couldn't communicate because of the language barrier again. Mm-hmm. I'm a teacher myself, so my children actually attended the same school that I teach at. So they go to work with me, they come home with me, and then when it comes to participating in the school culture, I'm able to be there and watch them flourish and grow. And actually we were fortunate to this school that they were currently attending in grade 5 did offer a Punjabi language class. So my children can respond to me only in English because their Punjabi is not as strong. So they were taking that class and they've enjoyed that. And for next year, they're going to be in a French immersion class as well. So in my mind, Canada offers many opportunities to still value the culture that you're from, as well as embrace the English culture. And because we are a bilingual country now, they're going to take the opportunity to learn some French as well.
Okay.
And I hope that my children, like I said, build upon the opportunities that I was given. So I would like them to go to post-secondary school and choose professions of their own that they might be interested in.
Okay. And you had mentioned that you graduated from UBC.
Yes.
Are there any other professional or social organizations or institutions that you're a part of in your community?
Just my teaching profession, but along the years I've worked at the airport as an interpreter. I worked for the Surrey Crisis Line to help out there. I've actually, when I moved from here and I was finished my practicum and still looking for a teaching job at the age of 22, I actually built my own home, which I found challenging in some ways because that's um, being a contractor or subcontractor or builder of homes is mostly still dominated by men. And being a young girl, I had my challenges doing that. But again, it was, like I said, in a country like Canada, as long as you want to do something, you are never denied it. I've been given lots of opportunities that way.
Okay.
And I got my Bachelor's of Education from UBC, but I have my diploma from Simon Fraser University in literacy. And I also have my Master's in Leadership from the State University of San Diego.
Okay. Okay, so you did bring some artifacts and some documents with you, so I'll have a look at those afterwards. But my last question is, so we talked about Donald and Golden, and we talked about this Gurdwara and the school that you went to. Are there any other places of significance in the community, like locations, that you think would be significant to the Punjabi history in British Columbia?
Just the rivers, the lakes, the parks here, because I remember a lot of our families would all take something from home and we would have a shared picnic. I remember those, and a lot of walks and hikes and yeah, stuff like that.
Okay, so just like the surrounding parks and the community parks and the surrounding parks of here in Golden.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, is there anything else you want to add?
No, that's everything for now.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for sharing your story.